Welcome to Debbie's Grill, where we talk about issues that concern the state, void of politics, fear, or favor. Parliament has passed the controversial Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, widely referred to as the anti-LGBTQ bill, after months of intense national debate and international scrutiny. The bill, sponsored by a group of bipartisan lawmakers, seeks to criminalize LGBTQ plus activities, advocacy, and the promotion of what it describes as non-conventional sexual relations and family values. Its passage marks one of the most divisive legislative moments in Ghana's recent democratic history, drawing both strong support from conservative and religious groups and criticism from human rights organizations and sections of the international community. Among other provisions, the bill proposes penalties for individuals who engage in same-sex relations, as well as sanctions against persons and organizations accused of promoting, funding, or advocating for LGBTQ plus activities. Supporters of the legislation argued that it is necessary to preserve Ghanaian cultural, religious, and family values. Several religious bodies and traditional leaders had publicly backed the bill during parliamentary deliberations, insisting that the legislation reflect the moral beliefs of the majority of Ghanaians. However, critics have warned that the law could undermine constitutional rights, including freedom of expression, association, and protection from discrimination. Co-sponsor of the controversial anti-LGBTQ bill, Reverend Tim Fojo, and other members of parliament on the minority side of the House are fighting an attempt to introduce clauses into the bill removing sanctions for media, legal, and other professionals who render services that could be deemed as promotion of LGBTQ plus activities. So last week Friday, for me it's a good news. We heard a good news that the LGBTQ plus bill was passed. And personally, I'm kind of excited because I think I've been speaking about this particular LGBTQ thing for almost, if I wouldn't lie, I think I've spoken about it consistently. I can't give the exact figure though, but I've spoken about it consistently because I feel like it's very, very necessary for us to pass the bill into law. Although we've seen this bill being passed during the previous administration, but the only challenge was that it wasn't signed into law. But on Friday, the bill has been passed, and personally, I have this iota of belief and trust that it could be passed into law. Now, I've heard people speaking about the bill, that there've been a change in the bill, blah, 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 and that they will still need to go through that. And that particular point that was being figured out was done by the minority. And you see, the most funny aspect is that Reverend Tim Fojo and Samonate George, I will say they are the leading conveners of this whole thing, LGBTQ+. But when this bill was represented to Parliament, that was Friday when it was being passed, they had a challenge with Clause 9 of the bill. Now, what is it stating? The clause 9 of the bill is again the prohibition of promoting this LGBTQ plus activities. So imagine I come here and then I speak about like what I'm doing, I'll be picked up because in a way it's being termed that I'm kind of promoting it, whether my intention towards it is positive or negative, I'll be picked up because it's against that. And so even if I go out and then I ask people, which we do, we go out, we ask people their views on this LGBTQ plus, I will still be picked up. Now, one thing, people do not understand is that the whole clause 9 is not being scrapped. The jail terms are still there. If you are being caught, you will be served, like you will serve the sentence. But the only change that was made has to do with journalists, counselors, and legal practitioners. So imagine a journalist, you are talking about the same thing. It means you are exempted. And then one thing is that everyone is subjected to a representative, like a legal representative. I cited an example that if you are being caught with a knife stabbing someone, like the evidence is clear that you're stabbing someone, you still have the right to go in for a legal person to stand in for you. Because when that issue gets to court, you still need someone, you need a lawyer to stand in to talk on your behalf. So according to our law, regardless of how tedious that crime is, you still have the right to go in for a lawyer. So if that lawyer speaks on your behalf, so then the bill which was introduced in 2024 spoke against that even as a legal representative, you have no right to stand in for an LGBTQ person. So in a way, if you're being caught in the act, like, you just be jailed. You don't have the right to go in for a lawyer to stand in for you, because we know that it has been criminalized. So you don't have the right to do that. And then the bill also stated that as a landlady or as a landlord, if I rent my house for someone who is into this LGBTQ plus sort of a thing, I will be arrested. But think of it, when you think of this thing twice, I'm a landlord or a landlady, and then I rent house for someone. How am I supposed to know whether this person coming in to rent my house is into soppy or whatever it is into LGBTQ, gay or lesbianism? So you see, it is this part that is being, let me say, it's being changed. And the same minority that are making complaint of this raised this issue when a bill was first presented to Parliament in 2024. The then majority, now the minority leader, Fenyo Markin, raised a question on that. There was an interview, he was granted an interview by Joy News. And then he said it. He said, instead of us jailing these people, why not we push them into, community, something sort of community punishment of a thing. So as they are being punished, in a way, there should be, there should be someone like a psychologist, because some people believed if you are into this LGBTQ sort of a thing, it's here. So they'll have to cancel you and all that. So they stood against that particular thing. And then we still had two people who went to court to raise concerns on that, because they need clarification on that. And I would say maybe, just maybe, that is the main reason why they didn't send it into law. That is their own problem. But the bill was not passed. And the same people, the same question they raised, or the same problem they found with the bill and all that, now that the bill is represented or reintroduced to Parliament, they're still making complaint that why is it changed, and why should there be a sort of change on it. First, when I saw this, in a way, I felt like it was not supposed to be so. But trust me, when you read through, you get, like, you make sense out of it. Because as I said, you need someone to represent you in court, but that doesn't mean that if you're being caught red-handed, if the Lord finds you guilty, you're not going to serve your term. You would definitely serve your term. The most important thing right here is that, in as much as this passing of the bill is nothing new, because it was passed during the previous administration and we never saw anything, we just hope that this current one will be passed into law. It wouldn't be just be introducing it into Parliament and then passing it and we not signing it. Because trust me, this LGBTQ sort of thing is not part of us. It's not our tradition. We are against it. God, in his own wisdom, created man and woman. If God feels like a woman wouldn't be a help to a man, or a man wouldn't be a help to a woman, I'm not sure he will create these two creatures. He would have created one and then allowed them to do their things. But because he felt like it is needed, that is why he created it. So our culture and our tradition is against that. So please, if you're an LGBTQ person, you better start psyching your mind whether to change or not, because if this is being passed into law and you are being caught, trust me, you don't need explanation. The law will deal with you. Thank you for making time with me on the screen.